Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to talk about the comparison of adjectives. What we are going to discuss throughout this video is about what comparison of adjectives is, and then the functions, and the last one is about the forms, because we are going to use this comparison of adjectives in sentences. Now let's start our discussion. Alright, so basically there are three types of comparison of adjectives based on their functions and forms. In this opportunity, I will tell you the three types. The first one is the positive form, and then the comparative form, and the last one is superlative form. Let's go to the first type. What is the function of the comparison of adjective in positive form? We use it to compare two things of the same quality. Okay, so it has similar size or similar weight or similar feelings or similar price, anything similar, then you have to use this positive form. Remember that you have to compare two things, right? So here the subject should be the first thing, and then the object should be the second thing. Okay, the things are classified as nouns. So subject, which refer to the first thing or noun, plus to be is mr or was or were, plus as, plus adjective, plus as, plus the second thing or second noun. And then you have to also remember that you have to use the basic form of the adjective without adding any words or affix. Okay, you do not use more or mores or or est or anything else. Just use big or difficult or boring or beautiful, okay, the adjective itself. Now let's see the example. The first example: the white books are as heavy as the black books. As you can see that those stack of books there, the white books and the black books are having similar size and similar weight. So we can say that the white books are as heavy as the black books. And then let's go see the next example. This yellow flower is as beautiful as the red rose. Right, so you want to compare these two flowers, the yellow one and the red one, and you want to say that both have the same beauty. The quality here is the beauty of these flowers. You can also say the red rose is as beautiful as the yellow flower. If you exchange the position between the first noun and the second noun, the meaning will still be the same. Okay, so let's go to the next type, the comparative form. So the functions of the comparative adjective is to compare two things of different qualities. Previously, when we talk about the positive form, it talks about the same qualities. So you can exchange the position between the first noun and the second noun. Here, we talk about two things of different qualities. The first thing can be more blah 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 than the second thing, or can be less blah 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 than the second thing. Okay, the key point here is the word than in comparative form. That's differentiate comparative with the positive and the next type. Okay, it has the word than. And then there are two different forms here. The first one is using more plus adjective, and the second one is using adjective with er. You have to choose one form at once. You cannot use both at the same time. You either use more plus adjective then blah blah blah, or adjective plus er plus then blah blah blah. You cannot say more easier than. You cannot do that. More shorter, that is wrong. So you have to choose which one. Later we will see the rules, when to use more, when to use er as the comparative form. Now let's go check the examples. Alright, the first example. This airplane is bigger than this red ant. As you can see, based on the size of the plane is bigger than the red ant. We can also say that the red ant is smaller than the airplane. They have different quality in size. Now let's go see the next example. that computer is more expensive than that camera. You can read the price tag on the computer. It says that the price is $500 while the camera is $250. So we can say that the computer is more expensive than that camera, or that camera is cheaper than that computer. Alright, so let's move on to the last type, shall we? The last type is the superlative form. Okay, so the function of the superlative form is to compare one thing with different quality among many things. Okay, so you have many things, and then you want to point out one thing which has a different quality other than the other many things. Here you are not comparing one to one. And then the same like the comparative form, there are two different forms here. The first one is using most, and the second one is using the suffix est. And remember here the characteristic that differentiate superlative with the comparative and the positive ones are the use of the before most plus adjective and before the adjective plus est, and then it must be added with noun, so only a single noun. And again, do not use most and est at the same time. You have to choose what you need to use, okay, based on the rules. So just choose one. Most easiest, it's wrong. Most shortest, it's wrong. Let's go check on the example. Right, so the first examples. Mr. John is the tallest person among all teachers in this school. As you can see, we are not comparing one to one, but we are comparing one thing among many things. We can see that there are 5 teachers here, and Mr. John has one different quality among these teachers. He is the tallest person. Don't forget to use the before you use the superlative adjective, and then add the noun person, the tallest person. Okay, now let's go to the next example. I think Mr. John is the most handsome person in the school. Again, it wants to indicate that Mr. John has other different quality among these teachers. Okay, so well, those are our examples. These examples, okay? No hard feeling for everybody. Let's go back to comparisons of adjectives. Alright, now we are going to discuss when to add the er or est and when to use more or most to the adjectives. Are you ready? Right, before that, I need you to remember these terms before we move on. Okay, first one is syllable. Syllable is a unit of pronunciation having one vowel sound. For example, remember, you have 3 syllables. Remember. 6T, you have 2 syllables, 6 and T. So those are syllables. And then we have vowel. The vowels are the alphabets with the vocal sound A, E, I, O, U, while the consonants are the alphabets other than the vowels, like B, C, D, F, G, etc. Alright, so let's go to the first rule. The first rule applies to short adjectives or the one-syllable adjective, like short, big, thin, cute. Those are short adjectives. In this case, what you have to do is you add er than for the comparative adjective, and you add the plus adjective plus est plus noun for the superlative adjective. For example, the adjective short, the comparative form is shorter, while the superlative form is the shortest. There are more rules for this one-syllable adjective. The first one is that you have to see the ending of the adjective, okay? If the ending is CVC or consonant, a vowel consonant, and the last consonant is either T, G, D, L, or N, you have to double the last consonant. For example, the adjective big here. Big here consists of B as consonant, I the vowel, and then G is the consonant. The last letter is G. Therefore, you have to double the last consonant. Double G. Then the spelling will be B-I-G-G-E-R. Bigger. The same with thin. The last three letters are CVC, and the last letter is among these consonants. So you have to double the N. Thinner. But here, short, you don't need to double the T, because the last three letters are not CVC but VCC, vowel consonant consonant, so just add the ER without doubling the last consonant. While for slow here, although the last three letters are in consonant vowel consonant, but the last letter is not among these consonant, so you don't need to double the W here, just add an ER. The next rule applies to the short adjective. If the ending is E, like the last example here, then you have to add directly with R or ST. So you only have one E. Cute becomes cuter, cutest. Okay, large, larger or the largest. Wise becomes wiser or the wisest. Now let's move on to the next rule, which is applied to the two-syllable adjectives. This is a little bit trickier because for two-syllable adjectives, there are two different forms of comparative and superlative adjectives that you can use. The first one is by adding ER plus than and EST for the superlative adjective. The first one is for two-syllable adjectives ending with Y. Okay, you need to change the Y into I before adding the ER or EST. Happy, you change the Y into I, becomes happier or the happiest with I. So any adjectives that consist of two syllables ending with Y, you need to add ER for comparative and EST for superlative. The other two-syllable adjectives are the ones ending with OW, LE, and ER. For example, like narrow, so you add ER, narrower, narrowest. And then ending with LE like simple, simpler or the simples, and ending with ER like clever. You say cleverer or the cleverest. Okay, so this is the first rule for the two-syllable adjectives. The next rule is applied to the two-syllable adjectives other than the ones ending with Y or the other ending previously mentioned. So in this case, you have to use more or less blah 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 than for the comparative adjective, and you have to use the most or the least plus noun for the superlative adjective. For example, the adjective complete, it will be more complete than for the comparative, and it will be the most complete class for the superlative. In this case, the adjective made by adding ed or ing should use more and most, like bored. Although bored is a short adjective, but because this is the verb bore adding with d or ed, you have to use more or most, more bored or the most bored person instead of adding the er or est. The same with the adjective relaxed. You say more relaxed. Alright, now let's go to the last rule, which is applicable to the three-syllable adjectives. In this case, no bargaining, you cannot use er or est, you must use more or less plus than and the most or least. Like beautiful, three-syllable adjective becomes more beautiful than for the comparative adjective, and it will be the most beautiful one for the superlative adjective. The same rule applied to the adjective made by adding ed or ing. You have to use more or most for the three or more syllable adjectives, like complicated. We say more complicated than, the most complicated person, the same as interesting. You say more interesting than, or the most interesting film, for example. Okay, so these are the basic rules related to the number of syllables in the adjectives. Now we move on to the very last forms, which is the irregular forms. This is the ultimate form of certain adjectives. Yeah, so just don't add er or est, but you have to change the forms of the adjective. That's why it's called irregular. For example, good, it will be better and the best. Bad, it will be worse and worse. Many or much, it will be more or most. While for little, you have to see the meaning that it brings, whether it refers to size or amount. If the little refers to size, it will be littler than, and the superlative will be the littlest. While if it's related to amount, it will be less than and the least. While for far, if it's related to place, you say farther or farthest, or you can also use further or furthest. While if you talk for to refer to the time, you can only use further or the furthest. And then for old, for people, you can either use elder, older for the comparative, and the eldest or the oldest for superlative. For things, for non-living things, you can only use older and the oldest. While for late, if it's related to the time, you say later than and the latest. While for late in terms of order, you say later than or the last. Okay? You have to remember, you have to memorize these irregular forms. Other than this, just follow the previous rules. Well, that's all about the comparison of adjectives. Hopefully you understand more now. Thank you everyone. Hopefully it helps. Bye.